today we have a very special series. And this is our series on autism in Africa, specifically Ghana. We've had this amazing opportunity to connect with some very influential and wonderful people doing great work, overseas. And it's certainly something that I am I'm unfamiliar, but very eager to learn more about. So today we have Serwah Quaynor, and she is a mother who's based in Ghana. I believe you have a adult son who's on the autism spectrum.
Yes.
And she's done a lot of wonderful work, and I believe she has her own nonprofit. She's helping families. I mean, basically, sounds like very much like a trailblazer over there in Ghana. So it's something that here in the U.S., we don't hear too much from other countries other than maybe Australia or the U.K. So to have this perspective from Ghana is extremely invaluable. And I really do want to thank John and Chip International for helping us set everything up. And I believe Mary is definitely on that team as well. So big thanks to all of you. So yeah, Sarah, I mean, I'm going to basically hand it off to you you can talk about anything you feel like you want to talk about. I'm sure you have a lot to talk about, so I don't want to take up any more time.
Okay, thank you. I think I'd like to share the screen. Grant will be sharing the screen for me.
Okay, will do.
So.
All right. Why don't you give it a try?
Okay, so I will start by talking about how the background of autism in Ghana. And for me, because we're talking about a lived experience here, and my son is 42 years old. He was diagnosed with autism in the United States at the age of 2. So I lived there with him until he was about 16 years old. And then, unfortunately, he had become, in the beginning, it was quite easy to manage, but the teenage years gave us a lot of challenges. So to cut a long story short, he was handcuffed by the police in Florida, where I was, and that informed my decision to come back to Ghana. Why was he handcuffed? Because he had a meltdown and he hit me. And somebody saw this. This was early in the morning. I was taking him to the beach. The beach can take all the noise. But then this happened. So it informed my decision to come to Ghana. And so coming to Ghana, I found nothing, absolutely nothing in Ghana. And nobody was talking about autism. I did not know what to do. But what I did was to take my son to a school for special needs children. And I realized soon that it wasn't the right fit for him. Because even though there were challenges in the US, I had been able to get the necessary support that I needed for him. And so I came to Ghana, and within a short time, I knew I needed help. But then I met a man who was a speech therapist and also special education teacher from the other school. And I asked him to support me with my son at home. And then he came. And then within a short time, my sister saw a child with autism at her church. And she approached this woman and said to her, "Oh, does your daughter have autism?" She said no. But then she gave her my number, and then the next day she came to my house. When she came, I had this teacher helping me with my son, and the rest is history. So she brought her daughter the following day, And this was in a very small room in the back of my house. And as she brought her daughter, I said, oh, I'm not prepared for this. She says, so you have help. So I'm also bringing my daughter. She also had traveled, had moved back to Ghana from the US. Within days, she had found 3 other people that she knew of who had challenges like our children. And then they joined us in the small room in the back of my house. So thus autism awareness started in Ghana. As they were coming, they were getting support from this teacher and from me, what I had learned. Because in the US, I made sure I volunteered my time in the schools, not in my son's classroom, because he wouldn't do any work when he saw me. So I would go to another classroom where I could use a 2-way mirror to see what he was doing. So I learned a lot about autism and special needs from his school. So the people came, and within a short time, then I registered, I think within a month or 2, I registered as a non-governmental, an NGO, because I saw that there was a need. But then when I came to Ghana, people were talking about only rich people had children like my son. And, but to prove them wrong, soon enough, we found that children who were also from the lower, I don't want to say lower class, did not really have much money, were not professionals. Their children also started to join. So before I could say Jack, we started doing 2-hour sessions for people so everybody could get some support. Before I could say Jack, we needed to move from this small room in the back of my house to a house somewhere away from my house. And then what did I say? I said we had room for 15 children. And because there were lack of support in the country, there were no speech therapists, there were no ABA therapists, no OTs. You talk about it, there was nothing. And even teachers who were trained did not know anything about autism. When you mention autism, people will say, Auti what? What is that? But because in Ghana, we see any disability as a curse for most people. So the bad culture beliefs in societal attitudes was awful. So then this came at a point that we needed to destigmatize autism because the stigma was just too much. So we started with the awareness and advocacy campaigns. We also realized that the healthcare system was lacking. There was only one, when I came, I didn't even know of a doctor who could diagnose children with autism. But within a few years, I think about 3 years, there was one doctor at the main teaching hospital, Dr. Bedu, who was doing diagnosis for autism. But then I had to tie, as we say in Ghana, tie my cloth to his cloth, and then start talking about autism to other people. And then for me, because I knew there was no help for anybody, and with one of the other parents, we just talked about autism to whomever would listen. And for me, it started from my church, that anybody who heard about autism, or if you know a child like this, call me. This is how autism awareness and advocacy began in Ghana. And through the years, it's been 26 years now since we started. We've created a support system where we have different people coming. We have people coming, volunteers coming from the US, from Canada, Australia, you name it. They hear about us and then they come to volunteer. Unfortunately, over the years, because of the economic downturn a few years ago, a lot of the volunteers were not able to make it. But even as we're here, we not only work with people in Ghana, but we've been working with people across Africa, especially Nigeria and Sierra Leone, Cameroon, Kenya. And we work with a lot of people, Zambia, I can go on and on, the list is long. So we've done training for people, Nigeria is very close to us, so they come here and we give them training. So we do direct training for not only the children, but also parents. And the most important thing we do is to counsel the parents. So because people have difficulty accepting the diagnosis of any disability. And then when you talk about autism, and we know the stresses of autism, and usually when I see them, as people are taking children to be diagnosed at about less than 2 years abroad, here it is when children are ready to go to school and children are being turned away that they come, because their main concern is that the child is not talking. The child is hyperactive and the child is this. And it takes a lot to counsel them to even accept the child that they have. Because when you have a child like this, in my culture, your child is supposed to take care of you in your old age. So some of them don't even see the necessity for taking these children to any kind of center or school. My center is not a school, because what we do is, once you're here and we assess you, you've seen the doctor, and we believe you can go to mainstream school to do inclusion, you go with support that we have trained. So this is what we've been doing since 1998. So so far what we've done in Ghana, and I said 26 years, we have been around, we had about 10 regions before they converted it to 16. I don't know why. But while it was 10 regions, we got some support. I won awards, and through Reach for Change Africa, I was able to get some money to train other people in the different regions. So at that time, we have Ghana is north and south, east and west. So we've been all over the place training people. And we also train teachers, nurses, doctors, whoever wants training. Because when people go to school, especially medical school, people were hardly talking about autism. But thankfully now, because we have been on radio, TV, you name it, we've been all over the place, raising awareness in the different regions. Personally, I have gone and I have sent my teachers also to go. So a lot of awareness has been raised, but we can even still do more, so that the cultural beliefs that is there, because unfortunately, disability within the culture is still not a thing that is so readily accepted. And with the healthcare system, what we have done is to approach some health facilities to let them know about our children through the Autism Society of Ghana, so that you have a special card. When you go to the center, you just present your card, so you are seen sooner and faster than others, because we explain to them about the possible meltdowns that they can also have. When it comes to talk about diagnosis, we still don't have many doctors who can diagnose children with autism. And the doctor I talked to you about before retired. And then we have a few I think we have about 7 in a nation of about 30 million plus people. So that's woefully inadequate. And then when it comes to education, in 2015, there was the inclusive education policy that was set up. But for me, I say my country Ghana talks about, oh, we went and ratified this treaty or went and ratified this at the UN. But unfortunately, we do these things without thinking of what's going to happen next. Have you trained the right people? Have you got the teachers in place? Have you got the people to understand? And even the schools, have they been trained? So this is something that we have made it our policy to be training as many people as possible. We have a university for education that partners with us now, and we do a lot of this work, the training, and we always have people here doing training. This is from my mother, and somebody said to me, don't say you're only a mother, because I have the lived experience of autism. So right now with the inclusive education policy, we have more children that we send on to mainstream school, because we all know that autism is like diagnosed with either is level 1, 2 or 3. But then I tell people, don't be very happy and say, oh, autism is level 1. My son is on level 1, so it doesn't belong here. We believe that we can train you so that you have the basic skills to be able to sit in the classroom, to be able to attend before we move you on. And then autism, in my experience, changes on people because I've seen it. Because my son was supposedly high functioning when he was in America for a time until he became a teenager. So I'm telling with the education system, I'm telling people, there are a lot of people who open schools because they say that the autism is the new, I say the new sexy, because everybody now wants their children to come there. So unfortunately, they charge them more money, but the people are not really trained. Thankfully, though, there are few people coming up now, and I am happy to say from what we started in 1998 as the only autism center, and then somebody also came around, I think maybe 7 years later, that's for Wawa 2. Now we have about 37 across the nations of people doing autism training, which is wonderful. So the school system, it behooves them to get the training that they need, not only for autism per se, but for children with autism and related disorders. And then I'm going to talk about government. Over the years, we've approached the different ministries and Ministry of Education and Ministry of Health, and they haven't listened to us much, but we keep pushing. We keep pushing because I don't believe in ever giving up. I don't even believe in giving up. We will never give up. And so we talk to them, they make all kinds of promises, but all to no avail. But then we say we continue. Thankfully, about a few years back, when the current minister, I think the current vice president, he came to support us for what we were doing, and he was very, very happy to see what we were doing. Unfortunately, since he left, he hasn't come back. And we just don't want people to pay lip service to things. We want action. As our word says, the name says, we say act. The reason we have the name ACT, because we want to take action in Ghana, is autism, awareness, care, and training. And this all came to me in a dream to be doing this. But we don't want to say that, oh, forget government, because we need them. They're the ones who get all the UN monies. They are the ones who get the monies from international bodies. So we'll keep on with the help of different collaborators to push for better services for autism in Ghana. Through our work and what we've been doing, we hope to increase advocacy, which is very important. For me, I say the advocacy remains unabated. We'll just keep going, marching forward to do this, because we need more awareness from radio stations, and this works a lot in Ghana, because a lot of people listen to the radio and the TV. Unfortunately, this all costs us money. But thankfully, I think for the work that has been done, I tell them, I'm not ready to, I can't pay you. Support us to do this. Unfortunately, through the years, I haven't paid a dime, or I would say a cedi or peswa for any of the programs we've had. When it's April Autism Awareness Month, you see them bombarding us and harassing us. Then I tell them that autism is not just in April. Autism is all year round. For some people, it's 24/7. For some people, they don't sleep. For some people, they are so distraught, they can't even go to work. So why do you wait until April? Then everybody is calling, everybody and their mother, they're calling me so I can be on the radio station. So what I have done is I have empowered the people who work with me so that they can do the awareness on radio, and we do advocacy in churches, mosques, we go all over. Because as I talked about, stigma is huge in Ghana. Thankfully now we're working with the University of Ghana and the University of Winnipeg, sometimes another university in Cape Coast, and we want to work with other universities who are doing training in education so that they can also take up the research, take up this mantle of finding out why autism, as autism research is so huge in the US, we are hoping that we can also do something in Ghana. And thankfully this has started, but it's not enough. The statistics in Ghana, I cannot really tell you about because there's not much to go on. But if we're looking at what it's saying in the US, is it 1 in 36 now? Or it could be even worse. And we look at Ghana, it depends on the area you are in Ghana. We record where people come from and where we're seeing more autism. And some people are diagnosing autism when it's not autism. Because usually when people come here, we do an assessment, whether you've been diagnosed or not. And then to see that you have the triad of impairment. And are you really, do you meet the criteria for autism? But whether or not you do or not, we train you and hope to send you to the mainstream schools. The most important thing that to do all this work, it needs funding. And funding is very hard to come by. I know it's even hard to come by in the US. But as I do this, and for me, I am somebody who believes that God leads this mission because we've come thus far and people come to support without us asking. They find us on our website, they find us. I don't know. So it's been an amazing journey. And we're looking for international partnerships to continue doing what we are doing. And as we follow through with this, we hope, and I really appreciate what you guys are doing with us now, that I've been given the opportunity by CHIPS International to talk to all of you. So basically, this is what's happening in Ghana. People are struggling. They have difficulty coming even to the centers that are open because transportation is expensive. And a lot of people, can you imagine the person who hasn't gone to school, doesn't have the means? But at our center, we say that just get to the center. It is our job to find the support for you. So we have quite a few people like that who come here, and then I'm always hounding people. I travel to the US and my friends know me. We make bracelets, we make artwork and whatever. We do all these things. And the work I do in Ghana has won a few awards, some international ones. They said a big center in Hot Spring in Wichita, Kansas, where I won this award for innovation and creativity in special education. And since then, I won several awards have been given to me in Ghana and Africa. And we continue and we want to do better and continue doing this and never give up to support our children. Thank you. I'm open for questions now, please. I think, let me finish this. As we talk about the different things, and autism is autism everywhere in the world. Autism is autism in Ghana, in the US, in Canada, all over the world. But for some people, they see autism as, because they say it's a curse. And can you imagine that, I think I mentioned it before, that they say it's for rich people. I don't know what you've seen in the US. I haven't been there in a while. I just visit, but I don't really do any autism work really there. I'd like to hear from you guys also, whether you hear this thing that, certain types of people are the people who get children with autism. Thank you very much, and I'm open for questions.
Well, thank you so much, Serwah. That was amazing and so inspirational. I mean, when I think about you being there in the mid-90s, I mean, trying to go to a better situation only to find out that maybe better in some ways, but there's so many other challenges to overcome. And just from the bottom up, you gradually built this huge support network. That sounds like really an invaluable resource. I mean, it must be like a lighthouse for a lot of families who are feeling lost and confused and need some guidance. And just that basic some training, getting point in the right direction is like really life-changing for a lot of people. I did have a question about you mentioned the intersection between the culture and autism, and this is something that we had a couple speakers mention this in the past on how the kind of culture really depends on how an autism diagnosis is experienced. I think one of the cultures we had encountered was that if the child had autism or some kind of a disability, then it was viewed as some kind of that means like you did something bad in your past, or your family did something bad, and this is like the way that you're paying for it. And that is, I mean, to me, that just sounds like such a huge barrier for people even considering exploring that. And it sounds like for in your experience that it might have a similar tone. So I mean, how do you, and for your families, how are you able to overcome, or how do you handle that?
Very good question. And I think like I mentioned that because they see it as a curse, and anything that's a curse, because we are very superstitious people. And when it comes to whether religion or whatnot, this is, either we're first of all, I think mostly Christian, some Muslims, and then traditional beliefs. But basically our culture, goes back to this issue of stigma and being seen things as a curse. And it's very difficult to really dissuade people from their way of thinking. So it's an uphill battle talking to them, especially when we do parent trainings and we ask for questions and they say, oh, so if my child cannot do anything, I've been up all night and you keep saying I should come. And when I don't come to you, come and tell me, and then I don't bring the child. So we tell them that with autism, it is structure and more structure. So, but unfortunately, some of them, because of the culture, they take them to all kinds of what we call prayer camps here in Ghana, and that they're beating the demons out of them. Because some people will quote you the Bible and tell you blah, 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 blah about that. And they go, and the thing is still not cured. A lot of people are still looking for the cure. The cure word, the big cure word. And you tell them that there's no cure for autism. But unfortunately, we're a country where people also come in and they say they have children with autism. And for two of them, I doubt they have children with autism. But because we've done so much work in Ghana, everybody comes on TV and just mentions the word autism. And unfortunately, people are not doing their research to find out, is this true or not? What is this really about? Because I've been accused of even saying, always talking about autism. Why am I not talking about cerebral palsy? Why am I not talking about Down syndrome or other things? So I tell them, I talk about what I know. I have not gone to school to do special needs, but I have lived autism. So this is what I talk about. So we still have to do a lot of training. When we have parent meetings, we make sure we train them. We spend about 20 minutes still doing training and teaching them what we do here at the center and what we expect from them, from the home. And these cultural beliefs and things, some people don't even show up at the meetings to come and learn. It is very challenging. But for 26 years, we've been doing this. We will never give up. We'll continue doing it till they will get and understand that autism is not a disease. It is a condition. And you're born with autism. It isn't anything that you did wrong or your brother did wrong. And usually, unfortunately, it's the women who suffer because they not in their family.
So I want to just reflect right now because I am popped off with familiarity. You would never think that I would have so many parallels with your story, but let me tell you how we all do. I grew up in a culture that says they value medicine, but my mother was I come from an immigrant family, and I was also taken to the priest instead of the doctor when I was different growing up. They knew I was smart, but all they saw was the positive because the superstition, Italian and Lithuanian. So and Irish. So the superstition around mental health conditions and developmental conditions absolutely helping off with familiarity there. My mother was a charismatic Catholic, like one of our Supreme Court justices, and the charismatics are actually really pivotal in creating the political climate for the entire country right now. So I was also taken to a faith healer instead when my behavior was different. And they brought in aspects of culture by calling me a fairy changeling, fae folk, a banshee for my behavior. I love how, even though it is a feature of your culture, a lot of us, when we talk about masking, we talk about living in very many worlds and living with many different masks. And a lot of us who come from cultures who are similar have to go out and mask in an American science forward culture while still living with the trauma that looks very similar to somebody who we think we're very different from, like you. And so many of the same criticisms thrown at me for trying to speak about my neurotype that you have had for trying to advocate for your son. So thank you so much for sharing. And we are far closer and more similar than we think.
Thank you.
I just popped in here, but I don't want to be on camera while I'm taking my EEG at home. But but this kind of resonated with me a little too. This whole Ghana talk on the autism, because my parents grew up in, and when I was diagnosed, they didn't know. My dad only knew what autism was by only because Temple Grandin came out with her story and a little bit of, but the only thing that popped into his head was Rain Man. And he's like, no way, my child cannot have this because one, she's not a guy. Two, she doesn't have these severities or symptoms like Rain Man. So how the hell can she have autism? So it was like when we told my whole relatives in South Africa that I had autism, they were like, nobody in our family has autism. They were kind of like, they don't talk about the disability. They don't really, they kind of accept it, but they don't really talk about the disability as much.
Great, thank you for sharing. I do see she has had her hand up for a while, so I want to make sure that she had a chance to say something.
Hi, can you see me? Can you see me?
Yes.
Yeah, all good. Hey, thanks so much for allowing me to speak. Roger, I got to connect with you. I emailed you upon seeing the event pop up like as an Instagram marketing thing. And I thought it was like a casual or like a great case of Instagram getting it right as far as marketing goes, or sharing these events. My little brother is on the spectrum, and my parents are also from Ghana. I was born and raised here in the States. We're all based in but I live in and just hearing about, Serwah, or I'm not sure how I should refer to you, but just hearing about your experiences and the incredible work that you've done, it's been just like more than inspiring for someone like me who has had to navigate a lot of different systems for my little brother. I'm coming at this from the perspective of someone whose parents don't slash still don't, but like didn't understand my little brother's neurodiversity. So having to help him get diagnosed, having to figure out now, and there's an age cutoff for the age in which you were supposed to get diagnosed, and like having to navigate that, navigating a number of different systems, statewide and things of that sort. So just hearing about your experiences, Serwah, it's been really inspiring to hear. And I'd also love to volunteer with ACT when I'm in Ghana. It's just great work. I also wanted to share something regarding my upbringing. So when we were growing up, one of our neighbors had a daughter who was, she had a developmental disability as well, but hers was also physical. So she had cerebral palsy. And I think my parents saw that child and thought to themselves, well, at least our son doesn't have a disability that means he is physically inhibited. In the same way that their definition of a quote unquote like being special needs or needing extra help meant something different from what it was. And so I feel like that negatively impacted the resources that my brother could have had access to. And so, yeah, I just wanted to say thank you again, and I'm really enjoying this talk, and I'll stay in contact.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Great, thank you so much for sharing. Did you want to say something?
Yes, thank you. Just briefly, I just wanted to thank you, Serwah, if I'm pronouncing it correct, your name correctly. That's very awesome. I just want to thank you because a part of why I participated in this is because my fiance is from Ghana. He's only been here since he was, and I suspect that he's on the spectrum. It's not really my place to diagnose him. Being a mental health professional, I'm aware of some of the challenges and some of the criteria that comes along with it. And he is so, for lack of better words, just deep in his cultural beliefs that I don't think is something he may ever really like explore. Even just like our premarital counseling has been his first dive into therapy and expressing and discussing certain things. So, but when it comes to like the social aspect, the communication, and some of the repetitious behavior, like I see that in him. I love him regardless, but I see that in him. So I just want to thank you because, yes, like other people mentioned, it is in a lot of different cultures. I think it's also a stigma for the American culture and people who are more like old world kind of like thinking, for lack of better words, regardless if you're from the diaspora from Africa or if you're Irish or if you're from somewhere else. Like there's this stigma, we released people. A lot of changes didn't really happen until like the 70s when it comes to mental health, even in this country. So I just want to thank you so much because it's such a blessing to be able to be a part of this and that you're moving forward. And I would like to, I was actually looking at the website and I'd like to try to be a part and help and support any way I can because this is just, it's needed. It's definitely needed. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Yeah, I think one of the themes that has come up in everyone's, most folks' comments is that there's, I guess, this interpretation or conclusion that people come to when somebody presents differently or someone's way of being is different. And if it's not sort of up to an expectation, then it must be, it's a negative thing, and then we begin to connect these negative things to other ideas, like something being like the word curse. We've heard that quite a bit, or something that's people are losing hope, or they jump to these conclusions about a child's future and what they're able to do, what they're able to maybe contribute to society, or maybe eventually help their parents. But I do want to highlight like some of the points about just because you're different, doesn't mean you're incapable of doing some really great things. I mean, that's probably one extreme, people becoming leaders. I mean, if some of the business tycoons that we know today who have autistic traits or claim that they are autistic are in fact so, then we have an idea that being different, doesn't necessarily mean anything bad at all. In fact, it can mean something extremely positive. But part of that is, shifting a perspective, so people don't necessarily need to give up, say, a belief, a religious belief, but if they're able to interpret what they see in front of them as not necessarily bad, but different, then maybe that may help people make the transition.
Yes.
Okay.
I would say it's been a very long and arduous journey. But like I said, until we come to a level of acceptance, it's when we're going nowhere with our children. Be it the child is very little or the child is become an adult. Because until acceptance comes in, for me, right now, I can proudly say that my son is in the world of work. He works part-time at a very prestigious hotel. And he's not the only one. And this is what we're aiming to do, is to get them to the world of work. We do vocational skills here, and then there's a girl that we're sending to a hairdresser to continue braiding. And then there's a water, we have bottled water here, people who manufacture bottled water. And some of our people go there too, because as you become an autistic adult, we can't just keep you at home or in a place. And the last I checked, institutions are not the place for them. I personally believe that my son will be with me until the Lord calls me home. And so we're trying to also talk to parents to put structures in place so that when you're not here, do you have a trust? Do you have, and even for my center, the center that I run, there should be a trust. And there should be somebody that you have earmarked to be the one who is going to keep this thing going. Because this is going to die after I'm gone. Because there are more children to help, more adults to help, and more people to train. So we just have to keep on going until I tell people that I will never retire, because what am I retiring to do? We have to find ways and means to do better. At our current location, we need someone to support us finish building, because we're in a very small place, like a very one room, then we moved to 3 rooms, and now we have a bigger compound, so you can see, but it needs to be built up and go so that we have a proper center with the right sensory rooms and different things. So I have a lot of hope. I have a lot of hope for ourselves. I have a lot of hope for the parents, a lot of hope for government, that they will listen and do the right thing by us.
Great. Thank you. And do we have time for one more question? I think he's had his hand up. I'd like to make sure he got to say something.
I thank you for this opportunity. I think I've been touched to share something a bit, because I have been working for diagnosed autistic children for the past 18 years. And when I say diagnosed autistic children, when I started working with them, people approached me and they said, going back to our culture and the stigma, they started telling me, you are going to become like them. And then after a while, I got married. And then other people came to me telling me that if I don't stop working with autistic people, I am going to give birth to autistic people. And then I still kept on working. I gave birth to 2 children. People were watching my children, trying to find out whether I've given birth to autistic people. But they came back to me telling me that my children are not autistic. But through my work and my experience, I have been able to see that when I look at the traits and the diagnosis criteria, I am autistic. But because of the stigma in Ghana, I am not able to go for any, to see any doctor, see any professional to properly diagnose me because I am scared the way people who are on the spectrum are being treated. And I feel like the moment I go and then I apply for diagnosis and people get to know that, oh, this guy is autistic too, when I drink cold water, they will say because I'm autistic. When I say I don't want cold water, they say, oh, he's autistic. And everything I will do, people will still be tagging it with autism. But I think being autistic is not something weird. And it is something that gives you opportunity to think in a different way. So I am proud to be autistic.
That's great.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point about, well, first trying, I mean, if children have a hard time finding diagnoses, then I'm sure the challenge is even much higher for adults. But I think another thing you said that I really thought was important was that knowing that and other people knowing that depends, the effect of that depends on what people understand what autism is. And I think that could vary very wildly, there's, I mean, people are very quick to jump to conclusions, so I think as you're saying, it's if people have in their minds that this is something negative, and something to, sort of exclude you on, then that will sort of be the effect of people knowing, which I think even more urgently conveys that a lot of public education needs to happen. And not just for, I mean, we definitely want services for children and supports, but even if you have services of supports in the public, who you're going to be sort of working with and interacting with in the future has a very distorted view of autism, then that is another layer of complexity that it's very challenging to deal with. So, I think that as we're thinking about services and ways of support, but also I think the public education piece, really needs to be taken very seriously, because I think over a lifetime, those little interactions, whether they be negative or probably even scary, are going to have an impact, on opportunities and well-being. All right, guys, we are 5 minutes over. I just want to make sure, did anybody else want to say something before we end for today? Okay, great. So thank you again so much, Serwah. I'll make sure that your contact information, so when we process this video for public release, we'll let you know, but we'll also make sure that all your contact information, is available, so people know where to find you and or how to find you, and as soon as they can.
Okay. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Sarah, Mary, and John from CHIP International. And next month we have another Autism in Ghana speaker, so I look forward to seeing you guys then.